In my 300 cycles as commander of the Nexus Prime Advanced Military Academy, I had never encountered a species quite as puzzling as humans. Oh, certainly I had seen my share of oddities, the crystalline beings of Taurus 7 who communicated through light patterns, the gaseous entities from the Carina Nebula who could diffuse through walls, but humans? They were something else entirely. My name is Commander Kraz'Thull, and this is the story of how one small human changed everything we thought we knew about their species. It was during the grand conjunction of our 3 moons when she first arrived. Alexandra Blackwood, though she insisted on being called Alex, stood before me in my office, barely reaching the height of my lower thorax. Her soft, pink-tinted skin looked as fragile as a newborn Xylaxian's membrane, and her bone structure seemed insufficient to support even basic motor functions. "Commander," she said, her voice clear and steady, reporting for duty as ordered. I clicked my mandibles thoughtfully, examining her transfer credentials on my holoscreen. "You understand, Cadet Blackwood, that our training programs are designed for, well, more robust species." She smiled. By the stars, what an unsettling expression. Those flat teeth exposed in what their species considered friendly, but to any rational being, it looked like a threat display. "With all due respect, Commander, I believe I'll manage." Behind me, Sub-Commander V-Rex snorted through his breathing filters. I could hardly blame him. The human before us wore no exoskeleton, possessed no natural armor, and showed no obvious defensive capabilities. Her only protection was the standard-issue Academy uniform, which hung loosely on her frame like decorative fabric on a maintenance drone. "Very well," I said, my secondary hearts thrumming with concern. "But you must sign additional waivers. Our medical bay isn't equipped for your kind." "Of course, Commander. I've already submitted them through the neural network." Efficiency. At least she had that going for her. But as I watched her leave my office with those bizarre bipedal movements, I couldn't shake the feeling that accepting her transfer was a terrible mistake. The Academy's reputation for producing the galaxy's finest warriors spanned 12 star systems. How could this soft, small creature possibly survive our training regime? That evening, during the faculty gathering, the betting pool was already in full swing. Professor Glix, our zero-gravity combat instructor, gave her 3 days before she'd request a transfer. The more optimistic Lieutenant Yara wagered she'd last a week. Only Dr. Pax, our xenobiologist, seemed thoughtful rather than dismissive. "You know," he mused, his sensory tentacles waving in contemplation, "humans are classified as persistence predators on their home world." "Persistence predators," Lieutenant Yara scoffed, her crystalline form shimmering with amusement. "What does that even mean?" "They chase their prey until it gets tired." "Precisely," Dr. Pax replied. The entire faculty lounge erupted in laughter. Even I couldn't help but join in. The idea seemed preposterous. In what universe could tiring out prey be considered an effective hunting strategy? But as I reviewed her physical baseline scores that night, something caught my attention. While her strength ratings were abysmal compared to our Thoraxian students, and her reaction times paled against our Velocian cadets, there was one metric where she excelled: endurance. The testing drone had given up before she did. I dismissed it as a mechanical malfunction. After all, how could a species without natural weapons, without armor, without even basic regenerative capabilities, possibly endure our combat training? She would either wash out or transfer within days. It was inevitable. Oh, how wrong I was. The next morning, as I watched her join the other first-year cadets in the assembly yard, I noticed something odd. While every other species naturally grouped with their own kind, she stood alone, surveying her surroundings with those strangely forward-facing eyes. There was something in her stance, something in the way she held herself, that I couldn't quite identify. It would take me another full cycle to realize what I was seeing that day. It wasn't weakness or isolation I was witnessing. It was patience. The first week of training brought exactly what I expected: chaos, confusion, and a steady stream of medical bay reports. Though surprisingly, none of them concerned our human cadet. Sub-Commander V-Rex took particular pleasure in assigning Cadet Blackwood to the most demanding physical tasks. Hauling graviton stabilizers? Send the human. Maintenance duty in the high-pressure chambers? Let the fragile creature handle it. Cleaning the acidic residue from the weapon's range? Perfect job for the soft-skinned one. But she never complained. never failed, never even showed signs of fatigue. Most peculiar, Dr. Pax commented during our daily briefing. Her cellular repair rate is off the charts. I gestured for him to elaborate, my primary antennae twitching with interest. Look here, he pointed to a biorhythm chart. After each task, her muscle fibers show micro tears, but instead of degrading, they regenerate stronger. It's as if she's adapting. Impossible, V. Rex rumbled. No species can simply adapt on demand. That afternoon, I decided to observe her training session personally. The obstacle course was particularly brutal, designed by our thoraxian combat specialists to challenge even the most enhanced beings. As expected, she was dead last among the cadets, but she never stopped moving. While the Velocian cadets darted through with lightning speed but needed long rest periods, and the thoraxians powered through but quickly depleted their energy reserves, Blackwood maintained a steady, relentless pace, hour after hour, lap after lap. During the high-gravity segment, something unusual happened. Cadet Vorkath, our top thoraxian student, calibrated the gravity generators to triple their intended output as Blackwood passed beneath them. A classic hazing technique, if an unauthorized one. The increased gravitational force should have crushed her inferior skeletal structure instantly. Instead, she dropped to all fours, muscles straining, and crawled forward. It took her 14 minutes to cross a 10-meter section, but she crossed it. Fascinating, Dr. Pax whispered beside me. Her bones aren't breaking, they're reinforcing themselves under pressure. Later that week, during underwater combat training, her breathing apparatus mysteriously malfunctioned. Instead of panicking, she calmly removed the device, held her breath, and completed the exercise. 4 minutes underwater. No auxiliary breathing system. Just a little free diving, she told the astonished instructor. Used to do it back home for fun. The accidents continued. Training drones mysteriously malfunctioned around her, weapon systems developed unexpected glitches, and environmental controls went haywire. Through it all, she adapted, survived, pressed on. But it was during the night cycles that I noticed something truly remarkable. While other cadets rested, recuperating from the day's trials, my security feeds showed Blackwood in the training halls, running, climbing, practicing. Her movements were different now, more fluid, more precise. She was learning, analyzing, evolving her techniques with each session. Commander Lieutenant Yara approached me on the 7th day, her crystalline form clouded with concern. There's something you need to see. She showed me footage from the maintenance bay. Blackwood was helping repair a damaged servo lift, her small hands working with surprising dexterity among the machinery. But it wasn't her technical skills that caught my attention. She was singing. A strange, rhythmic vocalization that seemed to energize her, despite 12 hours of continuous physical training. That's not normal, Yara insisted. No species should be able to maintain that level of activity without rest. I watched the footage again, noting how the human's movements never slowed, never faltered. Perhaps, I said slowly, my mandibles clicking thoughtfully. We need to reevaluate our definition of normal. The betting pool had gone quiet. No one was wagering on when she would quit anymore. Instead, a new question emerged: what exactly had we invited into our academy? We would find out sooner than expected. Basic combat training was scheduled to begin the following week, and with it would come revelations none of us were prepared for. Basic combat training began on the first day of the Nexus Prime's Red Moon cycle. The combat arena, a massive geodesic dome of crystalline alloys and pulse-hardened titanium, thrummed with nervous energy as 93 cadets from 27 species assembled for their first lesson. Combat Master Thex, a towering drachnid whose scales bore the scars of 1,000 battles, surveyed the gathered cadets with his 4 eyes. His tail, tipped with venomous barbs, swayed rhythmically behind him. Combat, his voice resonated through the arena, is not about strength alone. It is about understanding your enemy, yourself, the space between breaths. My attention was drawn to Cadet Blackwood, standing in the back row. While other species flexed their natural weapons, retractable claws, venomous appendages, reinforced exoskeletons, she simply stood there, hands clasped behind her back, watching. Pairs will be randomly assigned, Thex announced. First, exercise defensive postures. The holo matrix hummed to life, matching partners based on their baseline physical metrics. A mistake in programming, surely, when it paired Blackwood with Vorkath. Vorkath, nearly 3 meters of armored thoracian muscle, turned to face his human partner. His mandibles clicked in what we all recognized as barely suppressed laughter. Perhaps, small one, you would prefer to forfeit. Thanks for the concern, Blackwood replied with that unsettling smile. But I'll manage. The first exercise was simple enough. One partner would attack with standard strikes, while the other practiced defensive maneuvers. Vorkath, designated as the attacker, moved with surprising speed for his size. What happened next defied explanation. His first strike, powerful enough to dent battle-grade armor, met empty air. Blackwood had shifted not quickly, but efficiently. Minimal movement, maximum effect. Vorkath struck again, and again. Each time the human moved just enough to avoid impact. Fascinating, Dr. Pax murmured beside me, his sensory tentacles writhing with excitement. She's not trying to match his speed or strength. She's conserving energy. Combat Master Thex rumbled, approaching our observation post, and learning. He was right. With each attack, Blackwood's movements became more precise. She was adapting to Vorkath's rhythm, his patterns, his tells. The thoracian student, frustrated by his inability to land a single hit, began striking harder, faster, abandoning proper form for brute force. Then it happened. A slight miscalculation. Vorkath's armored fist grazed Blackwood's shoulder, a blow that should have shattered her fragile bones. The entire arena fell silent. But Blackwood didn't fall. Didn't scream. Didn't even flinch. A bruise blossomed on her exposed skin, spreading like spilled ink. "Good hit," she said calmly. "My turn." The exercise continued, roles reversed. Everyone expected a farcical display. What damage could a human possibly inflict on thoracian armor? But Blackwood didn't attempt to match Vorkath's power. Instead, she moved like water, flowing around his defenses, tapping specific points on his exoskeleton with surgical precision. At first, Vorkath laughed. Then his movements became sluggish. His coordination suffered. By the end of the session, his left arm hung uselessly at his side. Pressure points, she explained later when Combat Master Thex questioned her technique. Every species has them, even ones with exoskeletons. It's just a matter of studying anatomical weak spots. The revelation sent shockwaves through the academy. Cadets who had dismissed her as a curiosity now watched her with wary respect. Combat instructors reviewed their footage of her techniques, noting how she turned opponents' strengths against them. Even the Volosians, proud of their superior speed, couldn't land a hit when paired with her. But it was her pain tolerance that truly unnerved us. During a particularly intense training session, a crystalline cadet's razor-sharp edge sliced her arm. Red human blood, so strange in its liquid form, dripped onto the training mat. Medical attention I began to order, but Blackwood waved it off. "Just a scratch," she said, wrapping a compression bandage around the wound. "Had worse from paper cuts." The next day she was back in training, injury already healing. No regeneration chamber, no medical intervention. Just that bizarre human biology doing what should have been impossible. Vorkath's humiliation festered. Other cadets noticed him studying human anatomy files, probing for weaknesses. His attacks during practice sessions grew increasingly aggressive, towing the line between training and actual combat. Watch that, one Combat Master Thex advised me privately. Wounded pride makes for dangerous decisions. As if to prove his point, that afternoon's training session ended with another accident. A combat drone, supposedly programmed for basic sparring, went into full assault mode against Blackwood. The safety protocols failed simultaneously. The drone's plasma blade missed her throat by millimeters. Later, reviewing the security logs, we found evidence of tampering. But nothing could be proven. Vorkath's alibi was perfect, his technical expertise insufficient to have reprogrammed the drone. But when Blackwood passed him in the corridor that evening, she smiled, not her usual friendly expression, but something predatory. For the first time, I saw a thoracian step back from a human. Commander Dr. Pax approached me after hours, his tentacles rippling with agitation. "I've been analyzing her combat footage. The way she moves, her reaction patterns. This isn't just natural ability." "Explain." "She's had training. Extensive training. The question is, what kind? The challenge came during morning assembly, as the 3 moons of Nexus Prime cast their pale light through the Academy's crystalline dome. Vorkath stood before the gathered cadets, his armored form casting a long shadow across the assembly hall floor. Cadet Alexandra Blackwood, his voice boomed through the chamber. I formally invoked the right of challenge. The assembly hall erupted in a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and electromagnetic pulses, the varied sounds of shocked alien species. The right of challenge was an ancient tradition, rarely invoked, allowing students to prove their combat worthiness in officially sanctioned duels. Blackwood turned from her position in the front row, that now familiar calculated smile playing across her face. I accept. Subcommander V-Rex protested quietly at my side. The size difference alone makes this contest questionable under safety protocols. But I noticed something in Blackwood's stance that gave me pause. There was no tension, no fear. If anything, she seemed relieved, as though something long anticipated had finally arrived. State your terms, I announced, following protocol. Vorkath's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of confidence among Thoraxians. Full combat protocols. Victory by submission or incapacitation. 3 solar cycles from today. Standard safety measures will be enforced, I declared. No lethal force. No permanent damage. Medical personnel must be present. The betting pools exploded within hours. The odds against Blackwood were astronomical, 100-1 in most circles. Vorkath's victory was considered so certain that some bookmakers refused to take bets on him, only accepting wagers on how long the human would last. But a curious thing happened. The maintenance crews who had worked alongside Blackwood during her punishment details started placing small bets in her favor. So did several combat instructors who had observed her training sessions. Most interesting of all, Dr. Pax wagered his entire month's salary on her. During the preparation period, both combatants were granted access to private training facilities. Vorkath's regime was predictable power exercises, endurance training, tactical simulations against human opponents. Blackwood's preparation was anything but standard. Commander Lieutenant Yara reported, her crystalline form flickering with confusion. She's requested access to the environmental controls of the combat arena. For what purpose? She says she wants to study the ventilation systems and light refraction patterns. I granted the request, curious to see what she planned. The security feeds showed her spending hours simply walking the arena, occasionally stopping to make notes or take measurements. She paid particular attention to the acoustics, testing how sound carried from different positions. The night before the challenge, I found her in the tactical library, reviewing historical footage of Thoraxian combat matches. Looking for weaknesses, I asked. No, sir. Studying victory celebrations. I want to make sure I recognize when he yields. Her confidence should have seemed arrogant. Instead, it was unsettling. The morning of the challenge arrived with all 3 moons in alignment, a rare occurrence that some took as an omen. The combat arena had been reconfigured for the duel, its adaptive terrain set to neutral configuration. Medical teams stood ready with species-specific emergency equipment. As the combatants prepared in their respective ready rooms, I reviewed the combat protocols one final time. The rules were simple but absolute. No external weapons allowed, only natural abilities and hand-to-hand combat techniques. Victory by submission or incapacitation only. Medical surrender could be called by the attending physician. Arena boundaries were absolute, leaving the designated combat zone counted as forfeit. A young Velocian cadet approached Dr. Pax just before the match began. Sir, why did you bet on the human? The xenobiologist's tentacles waved thoughtfully. Because in all my studies of Earth's history, I've learned one crucial thing about humans. They're at their most dangerous, not when they're angry, but when they're calm. And I've never seen anyone as calm as Cadet Blackwood is right now. The arena shields hummed to life, creating an impenetrable barrier between the combat zone and the spectators. The atmospheric processors adjusted to maintain optimal conditions for both species. The medical monitors activated, tracking vital signs. Vorkath entered first, his armor gleaming under the arena lights, each step a thunderous declaration of power. The assembled cadets cheered, their voices a storm of alien sounds. Then Blackwood walked in. She wore the standard Academy combat suit, no additional protection. Her movements were relaxed, almost casual. But there was something different about her eyes now, a focus that reminded me of targeting systems locking onto their prey. Final chance to withdraw, Vorkath offered, mandibles spread in what his species considered a gracious smile. Blackwood rolled her shoulders, bounced lightly on the balls of her feet, and replied, "Not a chance, big guy." "Shall we dance?" The combat arena fell silent as the starting tone sounded. 3 beats, 2 beats, 1. Vorkath charged immediately, his massive form covering the distance between them with surprising speed. It was a standard Thoraxian opening, overwhelm the opponent with pure power and end the fight quickly. Against a human, it seemed like overkill. Blackwood waited until the last possible moment before moving, but instead of dodging, she dropped and rolled forward, passing between Vorkath's legs. As she emerged behind him, her hand shot up, striking a point where his thoracic plates met. The Thoraxian stumbled, his right leg suddenly refusing to respond properly. "Pressure points again," he growled, turning to face her. "Parlor tricks won't save you." "No tricks," Blackwood replied, maintaining a steady distance. "Just good old-fashioned strategy." The next exchange was brutal. Vorkath unleashed a series of devastating strikes, each one capable of cracking battle armor. Blackwood evaded most, deflected some, and took one full hit to her side that sent her rolling across the arena floor. The crowd gasped. Medical sensors blared warnings about potential internal damage. But she got up, smiling. "That all you got?" Vorkath roared and pressed his attack. Yet something was different now. His movements were slower, less coordinated. The point Blackwood had struck was affecting his balance more than it should have. "Notice something wrong?" she asked, ducking under another swing. "Feeling a bit sluggish? Maybe having trouble regulating your body temperature." The Thoraxian's attacks became more frenzied, but Blackwood had stopped retreating. Instead, she was leading him in a circular pattern around the arena. Dr. Pax's tentacles suddenly went rigid. "By the stars," he whispered, "she's using the ventilation system." He was right. Blackwood had positioned herself so that the arena's air circulation was blowing across her opponent. The physical exertion combined with the constant airflow was rapidly cooling Vorkath's exoskeleton, making his movements increasingly difficult. "You see," Blackwood explained, almost conversationally as she continued to move, "Thoraxian physiology relies on maintaining optimal temperature for joint mobility. Drop that temperature even a few degrees." She demonstrated by landing another precise strike to his thorax. This time, Vorkath's entire left arm seized up. The crowd was going wild. Species that had dismissed humans as weak were now watching in fascination as one systematically dismantled a physically superior opponent through pure tactical thinking. But Vorkath wasn't finished. With a bellow that shook the arena shields, he activated his species' berserker mode, a biological function that flooded his system with combat hormones. His seized muscles unlocked. His speed doubled. "Now you die." The next minute was pure chaos. Vorkath's attacks came from all directions, his armored form moving with impossible speed. Blackwood took hits, hard ones. She was bleeding from several cuts, and her breathing was labored. Yet she never lost that focused look. "You know what humans are really good at?" she asked, spitting blood. "Pattern recognition." Something changed in her movements. Suddenly she was meeting Vorkath's attacks with perfect counters, almost as if she let him hit her combat master. Thex realized aloud. She was learning his berserker combat pattern. Now it was Blackwood pressing the attack. Each strike targeted a previously hit pressure point, each movement built upon the last. She had turned the entire arena into a weapon, using terrain, temperature, and tactical positioning to gradually wear down her massive opponent. Vorkath's berserker mode began to fade. The biological boost came with a heavy cost, severe muscle fatigue and cognitive impairment. But surely the human was equally exhausted. The medical monitors told a different story. While Blackwood's vital signs showed stress and injury, her endurance levels were holding steady. She had paced herself perfectly. "Want to know another fun fact about humans?" she asked, circling her increasingly desperate opponent. "We used to hunt by chasing our prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Some tribes still do. They call it persistence hunting." The revelation hit me like a gravity wave. She had never intended to overpower Vorkath. This entire fight had been a persistence hunt. The end came suddenly. Vorkath, his systems failing and his movements uncoordinated, launched one final charge. Blackwood sidestepped, hooked her foot behind his knee right where she'd struck at the start of the fight, and used his own momentum to send him crashing down. Before he could rise, she was on his back, applying pressure to specific points on his neck and thorax. The Thoraxian's mighty limbs went limp. Neural paralysis lock, she announced clearly for the judges. He has approximately 30 seconds before temporary paralysis sets in. Call it. I found my voice. Victory by incapacitation. Match to Cadet Blackwood. The arena erupted. Species that had never agreed on anything were united in their shock and admiration. Medical teams rushed in, though Blackwood waved them off until they had seen to Vorkath first. As the paralysis wore off and he could move again, Vorkath did something unexpected. He laughed. "You," he said, mandibles clicking in appreciation, "are a worthy opponent." Blackwood helped him up, her small hand almost comical against his massive arm. "You too, big guy. Thanks for not holding back." The combat floor was a mess of scuff marks, blood drops both human red and Thoraxian blue, and patches of frost where the manipulated air circulation had done its work. It told the story of a battle that would be studied in the academy for years to come. But it was the reactions of the other cadets that truly marked the day's significance. Species that had dismissed humans as soft, weak prey creatures were frantically updating their tactical databases. Combat instructors were already discussing how to incorporate human fighting techniques into their training programs. And in the medical bay, as Dr. Pax treated her injuries, Blackwood finally revealed the truth that would change everything we thought we knew about her species. "You know what the really funny thing is," she said, wincing as a bone knitter sealed her cracked ribs. "Back home, I was just average in combat training. The truth emerged 3 days after the combat trial. Not through any security breach or investigation, but because Blackwood herself decided to come clean during her medical evaluation. Just a regular graduate of the Terra Nova Defense Academy," she explained, as Dr. Pax's tentacles waved in disbelief. "Specialized in xenobiology and adaptive combat techniques. Nothing special." Nothing special. The words echoed through my mind as I reviewed her full credentials, finally unsealed by Earth's military command. Alexandra Blackwood had graduated top of her class in xenobiological combat adaptation. Her thesis on leveraging environmental factors against physiologically superior opponents had become standard reading in Earth's military academies. So the whole Helpless Human Act, Subcommander V. Rex asked during our staff meeting. "Not an act," she corrected. "Just incomplete information. Humans are physically weaker than most spacefaring species. We had to adapt. Learn. Think differently. Every human who goes through basic training learns to turn their environment into a weapon, to study their opponents, to endure." The implications were staggering. We had assumed humans were newcomers to galactic warfare, barely able to defend themselves. Instead, they had developed an entire combat doctrine based on analyzing and countering physiologically superior opponents. The Academy changed after that. Training programs were revised to include modules on environmental adaptation and tactical endurance. Species that had relied purely on natural weapons began studying pressure points and biomechanical weaknesses. Vorkath, surprisingly, became one of Blackwood's strongest advocates. "Fight smart, not just hard" became his new motto as he incorporated human combat techniques into his training routine. The sight of a massive Thoraxian practicing precision strikes alongside a human quickly became normal in the combat halls. During one of our last conversations before her graduation, Blackwood shared something that truly opened my eyes to human potential. "You know what makes humans really dangerous, Commander?" she asked, watching a mixed group of cadets practicing together. "Not our endurance, not our adaptability, but our ability to learn from everyone we meet. Every species that thought they could crush us just taught us new ways to fight back." She graduated with honors, of course. Her final combat demonstration, a synchronized display of multiple alien martial arts styles adapted for human use, drew observers from 12 different military academies across the galaxy. But it was during the graduation ceremony that we received the biggest surprise. Admiral Zhang of the Earth Defense Force attended personally, a highly unusual gesture for a single cadet's graduation. "Commander Kraz'Thull," he said during our private meeting, I want to thank you for helping prove our point. Your point. That humans and aliens can learn from each other. Cadet Blackwood wasn't just a student here. She was proof that our species can adapt to and excel in galactic society. I understood then. Earth hadn't sent us a student. They had sent us a message humans weren't just surviving in the galaxy, they were thriving by learning, adapting, and growing stronger with each challenge. Now, as I watch the latest batch of cadets arrive at the academy, I see 6 humans among them. None of them look particularly impressive. All of them have that same patient, observant look that I once mistook for weakness in Blackwood. The other cadets don't underestimate them anymore. After all, the combat training hall has been renamed the Blackwood Arena, and her combat thesis is now required reading for all first-year students. As for Alexandra Blackwood, last I heard, she was developing new combat training protocols for mixed species units. Apparently, she's proving that human adaptability works both ways, not just learning from other species, but teaching them how to transcend their own physical limitations. I keep her graduation quote displayed in my office. The greatest strength isn't in having natural weapons, but in learning to turn everything into one. Humans. Still full of surprises.